The dress didn't fit right. Han Sol tugged at the waistline for the third time that morning, standing outside the Gangnam district office while her mother adjusted the veil, a piece of lace borrowed from a neighbor who'd worn it to her own wedding 30 years ago. "Stop fidgeting," her mother whispered, voice tight with something Han Sol couldn't name yet. Pride? Fear? Both? The fabric bunched at her hips. Her mother had sewn it from leftover material, stitching late into the night because a CEO's bride couldn't walk down any aisle looking poor, even if the aisle was just a hallway in a government building. Meng Duhan waited inside, checking his watch. He didn't look nervous. He looked like a man closing a business deal. When the officiant asked if he took Han Sol as his wife, Duhan smiled. The kind of smile that made her knees weak 6 months ago when he first approached her at a school fundraiser. Back then, she thought the smile was for her. Now, standing in a too-tight dress while he signed the marriage certificate without looking at her face, she wondered if it had ever been real. The ceremony lasted 11 minutes. No family photos. No champagne. No cheating. Duhan's parents didn't attend. They're busy with Titan Heavy Industries' quarterly review, he'd explained the night before, as if concrete and steel mattered more than their son's wedding. Her mother cried anyway. Han Sol didn't. She just stared at the ring on her finger, thin, silver, elegant, and thought, this is the beginning of everything. She was right, just not the way she imagined. The honeymoon wasn't in Paris or Jeju Island. It was 3 days at a pension in Gapyeong, where Duhan spent most of the time on conference calls, pacing outside while she sat alone on the balcony watching fog roll over the mountains. On the second night, she wore the lingerie she'd saved 2 months' salary to buy. He barely glanced at her. "That's not really your style, is it?" She blinked. "What do you mean? You're more modest. Innocent. That's what I like about you." He said it like a compliment. It felt like a cage door closing. Pattern interrupt, tone shift. By the time they returned to Seoul, the rules were already forming. Duhan iride stylish. She'll help you look the part. What part? An Solaska. My wife. The stylist replaced her wardrobe, donated her flowered dresses to Goodwill, threw out her sneakers, bought tailor blazers, and heels Han Sol couldn't walk in. "You shop at Dongdaemun Market?" Duhan said one morning, wrinkling his nose at her favorite skirt. "You look like a street vendor's daughter, not a CEO's wife." Her father had been a street vendor. She stopped wearing the skirt. Then she stopped wearing anything he didn't approve first. Have you ever loved someone so much you started erasing yourself to keep them happy? Unsoldit. She quit her weekend tutoring job because a CEO's wife shouldn't need side income. She stopped seeing Jia because your friend dresses inappropriately. She even changed her laugh, the loud, unfiltered one her students loved, into something softer, quieter, smaller. Duhan called it growth. Her mother called it marriage. Han Sol called it nothing, because she'd stopped recognizing her own voice. 6 months into the marriage, she found a document in his office. A prenuptial agreement, dated 3 weeks before their wedding. Her signature at the bottom, except she'd never seen it before. Her hand trembled as she traced the ink. The handwriting was close, almost perfect, but the loop in her S was wrong. If you've ever discovered something that flipped your entire world upside down, you know what happened next. Don't look away now, because what she did with that document changed everything. Han Sol didn't confront him about the forged signature. Not that night. Not the next morning. She folded the document carefully, placed it back in his desk drawer, and walked into the kitchen where Duhan sat reading the financial section of the Junggang Ilbo. "I'm thinking about going back to teaching," she said. He didn't look up. "No, just part-time. At Mapogu Elementary." I said no. The newspaper crinkled as he turned the page. "Why not?" Her voice cracked despite her effort to sound calm. Finally, he looked at her. Because my wife doesn't work. She maintains our home. She represents our family. Do you understand how embarrassing it would be if people knew you were still teaching elementary school? I love teaching. You love the idea of teaching. But you're not that person anymore. He stood, kissed her forehead like she was a child, and left for the office. She stood in the kitchen for 20 minutes, staring at her reflection in the window. He was right about one thing. She wasn't that person anymore. 3 weeks later, Han Sol woke up nauseous. At first, she thought it was stress. Du-han had been staying late at the office, closing the Busan port project, he claimed, though she'd stopped believing his reasons for anything. But when the nausea continued for 5 straight mornings, she bought a pregnancy test at a pharmacy 3 districts away where no one would recognize her. She took in a coffee shop bathroom, hands shaking so badly she almost dropped the stick. 2 lines. She stared at them until they blurred. What do you do when the best news of your life arrives at the worst possible time? Do you celebrate? Do you grieve? Do you pretend everything's fine and hope the love you once believed in will come back? Hansel did all 3. She told him that night over dinner at a Japanese restaurant in Cheongdam-dong, the kind of place where meals cost more than her father earned in a week. Du-han was cutting into his wagyu when she said it. I'm pregnant. His knife paused mid-slice. For 5 seconds, he didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. Then he smiled. Not the business smile, not the public smile, a real one. You're serious? She nodded, tears already forming. He reached across the table and took her hand. The first time he'd touched her with tenderness in months. This changes everything, he whispered. She thought he meant their marriage. He meant his legacy. The next 2 months were the happiest Hansol had been since the wedding. Du-han came home earlier, bought prenatal vitamins, even attended 1 doctor's appointment, holding her hand during the ultrasound. When the technician said, "It's too early to tell the gender," Han Sol smiled anyway. She already knew. A girl. She'd dreamed about her 3 nights in a row. Tiny fingers, dark eyes, a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. She whispered the name in her pillow when Du-han was asleep. Hanol. Sky. Because this baby was the first breath of air she'd felt in a year. But at 6 months, everything shattered. Han Sol was teaching a reading lesson, not at a school, just to the building manager's daughter who struggled with Hangul, when the pain hit. Sharp, twisting, wrong. She doubled over, gasping. The little girl screamed. Someone called an ambulance. Han Sol called her husband 17 times. He didn't answer, not once. If you've ever needed someone and they weren't there, you know the kind of fear that follows. The kind that never really leaves. Keep watching, because what happened in that hospital room broke more than just her body. The hospital lights were too bright. Han Sol remembered that most. Not the pain, not the doctor's voices, not even the monitor's flat, relentless beep. Just the lights. Fluorescent. Sterile. Unforgiving. She woke up in a recovery room at Seoul National University Hospital with a nurse adjusting her fore and a hollow ache in her abdomen that had nothing to do with surgery. "Where's my baby?" The nurse's face softened in a way that made Han Sol's chest tighten. "The doctor will speak with you." "Where is my baby?" The nurse looked away. Dr. Kong entered the room slowly, like she was approaching a wounded animal. "Mrs. Meng, I'm very sorry. Your daughter didn't survive the delivery." The words didn't land at first. They hovered in the air, meaningless, impossible. "What do you mean?" Her heartbeat stopped during labor. "We did everything we could, but I want to see her. Mrs. Meng, I want to see my daughter." They brought Hanul to her 20 minutes later. She was wrapped in a white blanket, so small she fit in the crook of Han Sol's arm. Her face was perfect, peaceful, like she was sleeping. Han Sol touched her daughter's cheek, cold, impossibly soft, and something inside her chest cracked open. She tried to speak, but no sound came, just a low, animal keening that didn't sound human. She rocked Hanul for an hour, whispering apologies into her daughter's hair. "I'm sorry I couldn't keep you safe. I'm sorry you never got to breathe. I'm sorry your father isn't here." Duhan arrived 3 hours after the delivery. He walked into the room with his tie loosened, smelling faintly of whiskey, and stared at Han Sol holding their dead daughter like he'd walked onto the wrong movie set. "They said it didn't make it?" "Not she. It." Han Sol looked up at him, her face soaked with tears and snot and rage she didn't know she was capable of. "Her name is Hanul. Han Sol. Say her name." He glanced at the door like he wanted to leave. "This isn't helping anyone." "Hold her." "What?" "Hold your daughter." Her voice cracked. "Just once." He took a step back. "I don't think that's a good idea." "You don't think," she choked on the words. "She's your child. Our child. And you won't even." "She's dead, Han Sol." His voice was sharp now, defensive. "What do you want me to do? Pretend this didn't happen? These things happen. It's tragic, but we move forward." He checked his watch. Actually checked his watch. "I have a board meeting at 9. I'll come back tonight." He didn't. What kind of man walks away from his wife in a hospital bed, holding their dead child, because he has a meeting? Comment below. Would you have forgiven him? 2 days later, Dr. Kong delivered the second blow. "Mrs. Meng, I need to discuss your uterus." Han Sol barely heard her. She was staring at the empty bassinet in the corner, imagining Hanul's cry. During the delivery, there was significant trauma. Scar tissue has formed in a way that makes future pregnancies unlikely. The word hung there. Unlikely. Not impossible, but close enough. How unlikely? Dr. Kong hesitated. Less than 5% chance of conceiving naturally. And if you do conceive, the risk of miscarriage or complications is extremely high. Ansol nudasluli, numbli. Does my husband know? We informed him yesterday. Of course they did. Duhan didn't bring it up until they were home. He waited until she was unpacking her hospital bag, moving like a ghost through their penthouse. Then he said it. Casual, cold, clinical. "So you're basically barren." She froze. The doctor said 5% isn't 0. It's close enough. He poured himself scotch, didn't offer her any. "I need an heir, Han Sol. Titan Industries needs an heir. That's how legacy works. I just lost our daughter, and I'm supposed to pretend that doesn't affect our future." He drank. "I married you because I thought you could give me a family. I did give you a family. She died. She was never alive." The glass in Han Sol's hand shattered against the floor. Neither of them moved to clean it up. If you think it can't get worse, you're wrong. Because 6 weeks later, she discovered what he did when he decided she wasn't enough. Don't click away. The next part will make you furious. Han Sol found her wearing the robe. Not just any robe, her robe. The cream silk one Duhan bought her on their honeymoon, back when he still pretended to care what she liked. The woman was in their kitchen, barefoot, making coffee like she lived there. Maybe she did. Han Sol stood in the doorway, grocery bag still in her hands, staring. The woman turned, smiled, not apologetic, not embarrassed, just unbothered. "You must be Han Sol." Her voice was smooth, practiced. "I'm Yure." Han Sol's brain couldn't process it fast enough. Why is she here? Why does she know my name? Why is she wearing my clothes? Then Duhan walked out of the bedroom, buttoning his shirt. He saw Han Sol and stopped mid-button. For 3 seconds, no one spoke. The coffee maker beeped. Yura poured herself a cup. "I didn't know you were coming back early," Duhan finally said. No, I'm sorry. Not this isn't what it looks like. Just logistics. The grocery bags hit the floor. Apples rolled across the tile. A carton of eggs cracked open, yolk spreading like blood. Get out. Hansol's voice didn't sound like hers. It sounded feral. Yura sipped her coffee. Duhan, do you want me to? Get out of my house. Yura glanced at Duhan, who nodded once. She left without hurrying, heels clicking against marble, taking the coffee with her. The door closed. Silence. Then Duhan sighed like she was the inconvenience. If you'd been able to give me a child, this wouldn't have happened. Ansol's bizyun blurat. What did you just say? You heard me. He crossed his arms. I need an heir. You can't provide one. So I found someone who can. Our daughter died 3 months ago, and you've been mourning like she was real. His voice turned sharp. She wasn't real, Hansol. She never took a breath. She was a complication, not a child. The slap came before she realized her hand had moved. His head snapped to the side. Red bloomed across his cheek. For the first time in a year, she saw fear in his eyes. Not guilt, not shame, fear. Because he'd underestimated her. I want a divorce. He laughed. Actually laughed. And go where? Back to your parents' one-room apartment? You have no job, no money, no degree that matters. I have dignity. Dignity doesn't pay rent. He stepped closer, voice dropping to something venomous. You'll sign whatever I put in front of you. You'll leave quietly. And you'll thank me for not making this uglier than it needs to be. Why? Her voice broke. Why did you marry me if you were just going to destroy me? He tilted his head, considering. Because you were easy to mold. I thought you'd be grateful. Obedient. He shrugged. I was wrong. Have you ever heard someone you loved admit they never saw you as human? That's what breaks you. Not the affair. Not the cruelty. The casual indifference. Hansol packed one suitcase that night. Clothes. Documents. The hospital bracelet with Hanul's name. She left the ring on the kitchen counter. As she walked out, she heard him on the phone in his office. The divorce will be finalized quietly. She has nothing. No liberty. No fight left. He was wrong about that too. If you've ever walked away from someone who underestimated you, you know what happens next. We've all been counted out. But Hansol's story doesn't end in defeat. It ends in something no one saw coming. The Banjiha smelled like mold and regret. Hansol stood in the doorway of her new home, a basement apartment in Silendong, and tried not to cry. One room, one window at street level where she could see people's shoes walking past. One bathroom with a shower head that dripped even when turned off. 300,000 Korean won's deposit. 450,000 Korean won's monthly rent. It was all she could afford. She set her suitcase down and sat on the floor because there was no furniture yet. The walls were water-stained. The floor was cold. This was freedom. It felt like punishment. The first month, she survived on convenience store kimbap and instant ramen. She got her teaching job back at Mapogu Elementary, but the pay was barely enough to cover rent, utilities, and the debt collectors calling about hospital bills from Hanul's delivery. Duhan had promised to cover medical expenses. He lied. At night, she lay on a borrowed mattress and stared at the ceiling, counting water stains like constellations. 23. Some nights, she counted higher just to stay awake, because sleep brought dreams of Hanul crying in a hospital room Hansol could never reach. Have you ever been so tired you forgot how to cry? Where grief becomes white noise and survival becomes the only goal. That's where Hansol lived for 11 months. Then Jia showed up. She didn't knock. She barged in with 2 bags of groceries, a portable heater, and an expression that said, "I'm not leaving until you're human again. You look like death." Thanks. When's the last time you showered? Hansol couldn't remember. Jia sighed, set the groceries down, and started unpacking. You're coming with me tomorrow night. I'm not going anywhere. Yes, you are. Jia pulled out a ticket, embossed, expensive, clearly not meant for people who lived in basements. Charity Gala, the Shilla Hotel, open bar, rich people pretending to care about poor people. Why would I want to go to that? Because you've been rotting in this cave for almost a year, and I refuse to let Du Han win. Han Sol flinched at his name. He's not winning. I left. No, Jia said quietly. You escaped. That's different. She sat down beside her. But escape isn't the same as living. Han Sol almost said no. She had 100 reasons. No appropriate clothes, no energy, no interest in being around people who judge her for eating the wrong fork. But Jia was relentless. And deep down, beneath the exhaustion and grief and self-loathing, Han Sol felt something stir. Not hope, but maybe curiosity. What if I tried to feel normal again? Just for one night. The next evening, Jia loaned her a simple black dress and heels that pinched. They took the subway to City Hall Station, then a taxi the rest of the way because Han Sol refused to arrive sweating. The Shilla Hotel glowed like a palace. Chandeliers, marble floors, people in clothes that cost more than her rent. Han Sol wanted to leave immediately, but then she saw him. Not a CEO, not a politician, just a man in a modest suit, rearranging chairs near the back like he was part of the event staff. He looked up. Their eyes met, and for the first time in a year, Han Sol felt something other than pain. She didn't know his name yet, didn't know who he was, didn't know that meeting him would flip her entire life upside down. All she knew was that when he smiled at her, it didn't hurt, and that was enough to make her stay. If you've ever met someone at exactly the right moment, when you were broken enough to need saving but strong enough to survive, you know what happens next changes everything. Don't stop now. The man she just met, he's not who you think. Han Sol planned to stay 10 minutes. Long enough to prove to Jia she'd tried. Long enough to grab a glass of wine and pretend she belonged among people who wore wealth like a second skin. Then she'd leave. But the man rearranging chairs changed everything. He didn't belong either. She could tell by the way he moved, efficient, unbothered by the crystals and gold leaf surrounding him. His suit was nice but not custom. His watch was simple. No cufflinks. No entourage. He looked like someone who'd wandered into the wrong party and decided to help anyway. When a chair leg caught on the carpet, he crouched down to fix it, and Han Sol heard herself laugh. Actually laugh. The sound startled her. He looked up. His eyes were kind. Not pitying. Not calculating. Just warm. I'm terrible at this, he said, gesturing at the crooked rose. Do you want to help? I promise I'm better at conversation than interior design. She should have said no. She should have walked away. Instead, she stepped forward and straightened the chair he'd been wrestling with. You're supposed to angle them toward the stage, she said. That makes sense. He grinned. Aimez-vous. Han Sol. They shook hands. His grip was gentle. She didn't pull away. Have you ever met someone and felt like you'd known them in another life? Not love at first sight. Just recognition. They spent the next hour talking about everything except the gala. He told her about his obsession with cloud bread, the fluffy, sweet pastries from a bakery in Itaewon that only opened at 3 a.m. She told him about teaching, how kids' laughter was the only thing that made her feel human anymore. He didn't ask why she needed to feel human. He just listened. When the gala officially started and guests flooded in, Eunwoo glanced at the stage, then at her. Want to skip this part? And go where? There's a convenience store 2 blocks away. Best ramen in Seoul. She laughed again. Twice in one night. A record. They ended up at Han River Park at midnight, sitting on a bench with steaming cups of ramen balanced on their knees. The city glowed across the water. Seoul never slept, and for once, neither did Han Sol's hope. "Why were you at the gala?" she asked. He hesitated. "Obligation. Family thing. You don't seem like the charity gala type." "I'm not." He slurped noodles. "But sometimes you do things because people expect it." She understood that more than he knew. When he walked her to the subway station, he stopped at the entrance. "Can I see you again?" Her chest tightened. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Why not?" "I'm complicated." He smiled. "I like complicated." She wanted to believe him, but she'd believed someone before. If someone asked you out after the worst year of your life, would you risk it? Or would you protect yourself and walk away? Comment below, what would you do? Because what Han Sol decided next changed everything. Eun-woo didn't push. That's what surprised her most. After their first night at Han River Park, he texted once, "Cloud bread at 3 a.m. tomorrow." Interested, not demanding, not assuming, just offering. She stared at the message for 20 minutes before responding. "Maybe." He sent back a smiley face. Not a dozen messages asking if she was sure. Not a guilt trip, just a smiley face. She went. The bakery in Itaewon was tiny, tucked between a tattoo parlor and a late-night pharmacy. Only 4 tables. No menu on the walls. The owner recognized Eun-woo immediately, greeted him in Japanese, and handed them warm pastries without asking what they wanted. Han Sol bit into hers and closed her eyes. It tasted like sugar and clouds and something she hadn't felt in a year. "Safety. You come here a lot," she said. "When I can't sleep." He tore his pastry in half. "Which is most nights. Why can't you sleep?" He looked at her for a long moment, like he was deciding how much truth to share. "Because my life doesn't feel like mine most of the time." She understood that too. Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's script? Going through motions, hitting marks, saying lines you didn't write? That's what Han Sol had done her entire marriage. But with Eun-woo, the script disappeared. Their midnight meetings became routine. Twice a week turned into 4. Turned into every night. They'd meet at the river, the bakery, sometimes just a bench near Gwangwon Station where they'd people watch and make up stories about strangers. He never asked about her past, never pressured her to explain the sadness she carried like a second skeleton. He just existed beside her. One night, 3 months in, they were sitting by the river when it started to rain. Not heavy, just a soft drizzle that smelled like metal and spring. Everyone else ran for cover. They stayed. Eun-woo turned to her, rain dripping off his hair, and said, "Can I hold your hand?" She froze. "You don't have to say yes," he added quickly. I'd like to, if that's okay." Her throat tightened. Do-hun never asked permission. He took, controlled, decided. But Eun-woo was asking. She placed her hand in his. His fingers were warm despite the rain. And then she cried. Not quiet tears. Full, body-shaking sobs that came from somewhere she'd locked away for too long. He didn't let go. He didn't tell her to stop. He just held her hand tighter and waited. When she finally caught her breath, she whispered, "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For being broken." He shook his head. "You're not broken. You're healing." She wanted to believe him. 2 weeks later, Eun-woo asked her to dinner. Not ramen. Not convenience store snacks. An actual restaurant. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. Her stomach dropped. Here it comes. The catch. The secret. The reason this was too good to be real. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "It's about my family. If you've ever waited for someone to tell you the truth that ruins everything, you know the terror that follows. Don't stop now, because what he's about to say will shock you." The restaurant was too quiet. Jungsik, a Michelin-starred spot in Cheongdam-dong. The same neighborhood where Du-hun used to drag her to business dinners and critique her table manners. Han Sol's palms were sweating. Eun-woo sat across from her, turning his water glass in slow circles, clearly nervous. "You're scaring me," she said. He looked up. "I'm not trying to." "Then just say it." He exhaled slowly. "My full name is Cha Eun-woo." She blinked. "Okay. Cha, as in President Cha." The room tilted. Han Sol's brain short-circuited. President Cha, the president of South Korea. The man whose face was on the news every night, whose policies shaped millions of lives, whose security detail could shut down entire districts. "You're joking." "I'm not." "You're the president's son?" He nodded. She stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her chest tightened. Not again. Not another man with power. Not another cage. Han Sol, bait. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing." Her voice cracked. "You've been pretending to be someone you're not for 4 months. "I wasn't pretending." He stood too, hands raised like she was a startled animal. "I was just being myself. Not the title. Not the position. Just me. There's no just you when your father runs the country." People were staring. A waiter hovered nearby, unsure whether to intervene. "En sul kapt hiapek." "I can't do this." "Please." Eun-woo's voice broke. "Please just let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you've been testing me? Seeing if I'd date you without knowing who you were." "Yes." The honesty stopped her. He stepped closer, voice dropping. "Everyone I've ever met sees the presidency first. They see power, connections, opportunities. No one sees me." His eyes were wet now. "When I met you at the gala, you didn't know. You didn't care. You just talked to me like I was a person. You should have told me." "I know." He swallowed hard. "But I was terrified that if I did, you'd disappear. And I couldn't lose you." "Have you ever kept a secret because the truth felt more dangerous than the lie?" Han Sol sat back down slowly, legs shaking. "Your father is the president." "I know. That means security. Protocols. Public scrutiny." "I know. That means I'd be in the news. Photographed. Judged." "I know." He sat across from her again. "And if that's too much, I'll understand. But I need you to know something first." She waited. "I love you." Her breath caught. "I've loved you since that first night at the river. Since you laughed at me for being bad at arranging chairs. Since you cried in the rain and didn't apologize for it." His voice was steady now. "I don't care about your past. I don't care that you're complicated. I care that you're you." Han Sol stared at him. Du-hun had never said, "I love you," and meant it. He'd said it during sex, during arguments, to manipulate. But Eun-woo said it like a fact, like gravity. "I was married before," she whispered. "I know. He destroyed me. I know. I lost a baby. I know." His voice was soft. "Jia told me. Months ago. I didn't bring it up because I wanted you to tell me when you were ready." Tears streamed down her face. "You still want me? Even knowing all of that?" "I want you because of all of that." He reached across the table. "You survived hell and came out still capable of kindness. That's not broken. That's strength." 6 weeks later, Eun-woo took her to Namsan Tower at sunrise. The city stretched below them, golden and endless. He got down on one knee. "I'm not asking you to marry the president's son. I'm asking you to marry me. The guy who can't arrange chairs, who eats too much cloud bread, who thinks you're the most extraordinary person he's ever met." The ring was simple, silver, like the first one. But this time, it didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a key. If you've ever gotten a second chance at love after being broken, you know what she said next. "We all deserve someone who sees our scars and loves us anyway." Keep watching, because what happens after she says yes will blow your mind. The wedding was nothing like her first. No comadres, no government office, no parents absent because they were too busy. Just Han Sol, Eun-woo, President Cha, and a small officiant in the private chapel at the Blue House. Jia cried the entire ceremony. Han Sol didn't. She just held Eun-woo's hand and thought, this is what safe feels like. The Blue House terrified her at first. Staff bowed when she walked past. Security followed her everywhere. Her movements were logged, scheduled, analyzed. She couldn't go to a convenience store without advance notice. Couldn't meet Jia for coffee without a motorcade. Couldn't exist without the weight of a nation watching. I don't know if I can do this, she told Eun-woo one night, 2 weeks in a palace life. He was sitting at his desk, reviewing policy briefs. He looked up, tired but present. Do what? Be who they need me to be. He stood, crossed the room, and took her face in his hands. They don't need you to be anyone. I need you to be you. But I'm just a teacher from... You're my wife. That's all that matters. President Cha welcomed her differently than she expected. The first dinner was formal. Long table, 7 courses, staff hovering at every moment. Ansol Baralieta. She was terrified of using the wrong fork, saying the wrong thing, breathing wrong. Halfway through the meal, President Cha set down his chopsticks and looked at her. You're nervous. I'm sorry, Mr. President. Don't call me that. His voice was firm but kind. You're family now. Call me a BOG. Father. Her throat tightened. Her own father had been dead for 3 years. Cancer. She never got to say goodbye. I don't want you to feel like a guest here, President Cha continued. This is your home. You're not my daughter-in-law. You're my daughter. She couldn't stop the tears. The media was less kind. Within days of the marriage announcement, articles flooded the internet. President's son marries divorcee from Silindong. New first daughter-in-law. Elementary school teacher with troubled past. Critics question match between political royalty and common citizen. The comments were worse. She's a gold digger. He could have married anyone. Why her? She doesn't belong in the Blue House. Eun-woo wanted to issue statements. Threaten lawsuits. Han Sol stopped him. Let them talk. They don't know me. And honestly, I don't need them to. 3 months into the marriage, Han Sol woke up nauseous. Not the grief nausea. Not the stress nausea. Something else. She stumbled to the bathroom, gripping the sink, trying not to wake Eun-woo. When the wave passed, she stared at her reflection. No, it's not possible. But her body knew before her brain accepted it. She bought a pregnancy test from the palace medical staff, discreetly, swearing them to secrecy. She locked herself in the staff bathroom at Mapogu Elementary, hands shaking so badly she almost dropped the test. 2 minutes. She couldn't breathe. The timer went off. 2 lines. She slid to the floor, test clutched in her fist, sobbing so hard a colleague knocked on the door, asking if she was okay. She wasn't okay. She was terrified, because the doctors said it was impossible, because Du-hun's voice still echoed, your body kills babies, because she couldn't survive losing another child. But 5 months later, the baby was still there, thriving, growing, defying every medical prediction. And that's when she made a decision that would change everything. She wanted to feel normal, just once. So she went to Latte Mart, alone, without security, to buy tangerines and ramen. If you've ever made one small choice that turned your life upside down, you know what happens next. Don't look away, because someone from her past is about to make the worst mistake of his life. The doctors called it impossible. Han Sol called it Hanul's gift. At her 12-week scan, Dr. Kong stared at the monitor for so long Han Sol's chest tightened. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Dr. Kang's voice cracked. Everything is perfect. The heartbeat filled the room. Strong, steady, relentless. Unwoo squeezed her hand so hard she lost circulation. Given your medical history, Dr. Kong continued, this is extraordinary. I don't say this often, but this is a miracle. Han Sol couldn't speak. She just watched the tiny blur on the screen, moving, living in thought. Hanul sent you. I know she did, but she didn't let herself celebrate. Not at 12 weeks. Not at 16. Not even at 20. Every morning, she woke up terrified the miracle would end. She checked for blood, for cramps, for silence where a heartbeat should be. Unwoo noticed. You haven't bought anything for the baby, he said one night, scrolling through a nursery furniture website. I know. Why not? She didn't answer immediately. Then, because I'm afraid if I love them too much, they'll leave. His face broke. They won't leave. You don't know that. No. He pulled her close. But I know you. And I know you're the strongest person I've ever met. And I know this baby is fighting to be here just as hard as you are. Have you ever been too scared to hope? Where joy feels like tempting fate. That's where Han Sol lived until her 20-week anatomy scan confirmed. Healthy. Thriving. A boy. President Cha threw a private celebration. No press. No photos. Just family, close staff, and enough rice cakes to feed a small village. He toasted with barley tea, eyes wet. This child will be loved by an entire nation. But more than that, he'll be loved by us. Han Sol cried in her soup. By month 5, she finally let herself feel it. Joy. She bought baby clothes, decorated the nursery, read parenting books. She even allowed herself to imagine a future where her son grew up safe, loved, whole. One afternoon, craving spicy ramen and tangerines, she told Unwoo she was going to Latte Mart. I'll send security. I just want to feel normal. Just once. He hesitated, then nodded. Text me when you get there. She kissed him. I will. She wore a messy bun, oversized maternity sweater, and simple leggings. No muck-up. No jewelry except her wedding ring. Just a pregnant woman buying groceries. She was crossing the parking lot, bags in hand, when she heard an engine rev. Loud. Aggressive. She turned. A black Genesis G90 swerved toward a puddle the size of a bathtub. She didn't move fast enough. What happened next went viral in 2 hours and destroyed a man's entire empire in 2 weeks. If you think you know how this ends, you're wrong. The mud hit her like a wall. Cold, thick, reeking of sewage and oil. Han Sol gasped, wiping her eyes, trying to process what just happened. 1 second she was walking toward her car, thinking about tangerines and whether to get shin ramen or the milder kind. The next, she was drenched head to toe in filth. The Genesis G90 idled 20 feet away, engine purring. Then she heard it. Laughter. Cruel. Familiar. Unmistakable. The driver's window rolled down. Meng Duhan leaned out, designer sunglasses reflecting her soaked, humiliated figure. Oh! His voice dripped with false surprise. Isn't this Ansol? Her blood turned to ice. Beside him, Yura giggled, high-pitched, performative, the kind of laugh meant to wound. Wow, Yura said, loud enough for passers-by to hear. She really downgraded, didn't she? Duhan stepped out of the car, circling her like a predator. Han Sol couldn't move. Her legs locked. Her throat closed. She was 5 months pregnant, covered in sewage, standing in a public parking lot while her ex-husband humiliated her for sport. Still shopping at Latte Mart. Duhan sneered. Still living cheap. People were stopping now. Phones rising. Someone was recording. I can't believe you're still in Seoul, he continued. I figured you'd have crawled back to whatever village you came from by now. Han Sol found her voice. Barely. Leave me alone. Why? We're old friends, aren't we? He stepped closer, eyes dropping to her stomach. His expression changed. Darkened. Wait. Are you pregnant? She instinctively covered her belly with both hands. His laugh was sharp, vicious. Who got you pregnant? Does he know what you are? Does he know your body kills babies? The words punched through her chest. You killed ours, he said louder, performing now for the growing crowd. Couldn't even carry a child to term. And now you want to trap some other poor fool. Tears blurred her vision. That baby won't survive, he continued, voice rising. History repeats itself. Han Sol, your body is broken. You destroy everything you touch. Yura slid out of the car, linking her arm through Du-han's. We should go, Appa. She's not worth our time. Du-han smirke. Good luck keeping that baby alive. You're going to need it. They climbed back into the Genesis. The engine revved. They sped off, tires screeching. Han Sol stood there, shaking, mud dripping from her hair, her clothes, her hands still protecting her belly. A teenager approached cautiously. Mom, are you okay? She couldn't answer. She just stared at the puddle, still rippling, dark, endless. Somewhere behind her, someone whispered, Did you get that on video? Yeah, all of it. What Du-han didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that the teenager who recorded the incident had 47,000 followers on TikTok and a very strong sense of justice. 2 hours later, the video was everywhere. Naver, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. The caption read, Rich CEO humiliates pregnant woman in Latte Mart parking lot, splashes her with sewage and mocks her dead baby. This is Meng Du-han, CEO of Titan Heavy Industries. Make him famous. Within 4 hours, 3 million views. Within 8, 10 million. By midnight, 20 million. The comments exploded. Who does this to a pregnant woman? He needs to be arrested. She's clearly traumatized. This is abuse. Find out who she is. Protect her. Titan Heavy Industries needs to fire him immediately. Hashtags trended nationwide. Hashtag protect Han Sol. Hashtag Mafio exposed. Hashtag justice for pregnant women. Hashtag boycott Titan. News outlets picked it up by morning. KBS, NBC, SBS. Everyone wanted to know, who was the woman in the video? But no one knew yet. Not the press. Not the public. Not even Du-han, who woke up to 19 missed calls and a trending hashtag with his face attached to the words Monster CEO. He still thought he was untouchable. He still believed wealth was armor. He had no idea the woman he'd just humiliated was about to become the most protected person in South Korea. And the man who loved her? He was about to show Du-han what real power looked like. If you've ever wanted to see a bully get exactly what he deserves, keep watching. Because what happens in the next 48 hours will restore your faith in justice. By 8 a.m., the video had 35 million views. Du-han's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Board members, investors, his parents, PR consultants screaming about crisis management. He ignored them all. It'll blow over, he told Yura over breakfast at their Cheongdam-dong penthouse. People have short attention spans. Yura scrolled through her phone, face pale. Appa, this is bad. It's fine. They're calling you a sociopath. Let them. Your company stock dropped 18% overnight. That got his attention. He grabbed her phone. The headlines were brutal. Titan Heavy Industries CEO caught abusing pregnant ex-wife. Meng Du-han, billionaire bully or psychopath. Netizens demand arrest after viral video shows CEO mocking dead baby. His publicist called. He answered this time. Fix this, he barked. I can't fix this, Mr. Meng. You assaulted a pregnant woman on camera. I didn't assault anyone. I drove through a puddle. You verbally abused her, mocked her miscarriage. The optics are catastrophic. Then spin it. Say she's lying. Say it's out of context. Sir, there's video. 12 different angles. Audio is clear. This isn't spinnable. Du-hun hung up. Yura was packing a suitcase. What are you doing? Leaving. Excuse me. She didn't look at him. Just kept folding clothes with sharp, efficient movements. I'm not staying with someone whose name trends for the wrong reasons. You're leaving me? Over a video. Over the fact that you're about to lose everything. She zipped the suitcase. I don't date men who are bad investments. I made you who you are. She laughed. Cold. Final. You made me your accessory. I'm more than that. She left without another word. Du-hun stood in the empty penthouse, surrounded by marble and glass, and the suffocating realization that he'd miscalculated. Badly. Meanwhile, across Seoul, Han Sol sat in the blue house, wrapped in a blanket, staring at her phone. She'd watched the video once. Couldn't bring herself to watch it again. Eun-woo sat beside her, jaw tight, hands trembling with barely controlled rage. Tell me everything, he said quietly. Every word he said, every thread. She told him about the mud, the laughter, the insults, about how Du-hun called her broken, said her baby would die, mocked Hanul's death like it was a joke. Eun-woo didn't interrupt. He just listened, face growing colder with every sentence. When she finished, he stood. Where are you going? To make a phone call. Eun-woo. He turned, eyes blazing. No one touches you. No one humiliates you. No one threatens our child. His voice was steel. He wanted to play power games? Fine. Let's see how he handles real power. He left the room. Han Sol heard him on the phone in the hallway, voice low and lethal. This is Cha Eun-woo. I need a full audit of Titan Heavy Industries. Today, every contract, every account, every buried secret. A pause. I don't care if it's unprecedented. My wife was assaulted in a parking lot by a man who thinks wealth makes him invincible. Let's test that theory. Another pause. And one more thing. If anyone leaks her identity before we're ready, I'll consider it a threat to national security. He hung up. The Blue House Secretariat mobilized within the hour. What Du-hun didn't know was that his empire had been built on lies. And lies collapse when someone powerful enough decides to pull the thread. Comment below. Do you think Du-hun deserves what's coming? Because trust me, it gets so much worse for him. The Cadillac Escalade arrived at Lotte Mart 18 minutes after Eun-woo got the call. Secret Service agents in black suits fanned out across the parking lot, clearing bystanders, securing the perimeter like the president himself was arriving. Han Sol sat on a bench near the entrance, still covered in mud, arms wrapped around her belly. A kind employee had brought her water and towels, but she hadn't moved. She just sat there, staring at the puddle, replaying Du-hun's words on an endless loop. Your body kills babies. Then she heard her name. Han Sol. She looked up. Eun-woo was running toward her, tie loosened, jacket discarded, face twisted in anguish. He dropped to his knees in front of her, hands shaking as they cupped her face. Are you hurt? Did he touch you? Is the baby? We're fine. Her voice was hollow. Physically, he pulled her in his chest, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I should have sent security. I should have. You didn't know. I should have protected you. She pulled back, tears streaming. I just wanted to buy tangerines. I just wanted to feel normal. His jaw clenched. Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. So she did. Every insult, every laugh, every word designed to shatter her. By the time she finished, Eun-woo's hands were fists. "Get in the car," he said quietly. "Where are we going?" "Home." "Then I'm going to the Blue House." And then he stopped himself. Then what? He looked at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Not anger, fury. "Then I'm going to destroy him." Back at the Blue House, President Cha was already in motion. He'd seen the video, watched it 3 times, each viewing making his blood pressure spike higher. When Eun-woo walked into his office, the president stood. "Is she safe?" "Yes." "The baby?" "Fine. For now." President Cha exhaled slowly, then pressed the intercom. "Give me the Minister of Justice, the Financial Services Commission, the National Tax Service, and the head of the Fair Trade Commission. Conference room. 10 minutes. He turned to Eun-woo. "That man humiliated my daughter in front of the entire country. He threatened my grandson. He thinks money makes him invincible. What are you going to do?" President Cha's expression was granite. "I'm going to teach him that power isn't measured in wealth. It's measured in reach." The meeting lasted 40 minutes. Orders were issued with surgical precision. Full financial audit of Titan Heavy Industries. Review of all government contracts. Investigation into labor violations, safety violations, environmental noncompliance. Tax records for the past 10 years, cross-referenced with offshore accounts. Criminal probe into falsified building permits. Within 6 hours, the Korea Financial Intelligence Unit flagged 12 suspicious transactions. Within 12 hours, 3 government contracts worth 47 billion Korean wons were frozen pending review. Within 24 hours, former Titan employees began coming forward with allegations of abuse, unpaid wages, unsafe working conditions. The walls were closing, and Do-hun still didn't see it coming. He was too busy trying to control the media narrative, threatening journalists, bribing influencers to take down posts. He thought he was fighting a PR battle. He didn't realize he was fighting the entire South Korean government. And he'd already lost. That night, Han-sol sat in the Blue House nursery, hand on her belly, feeling her son kick. Eun-woo found her there. "He's moving a lot tonight," she said softly. "He's strong, like his mother." She looked up at him. "What did you do?" "What I had to." "Eun-woo, he hurt you. He threatened our child. He mocked Hanol." His voice cracked. "I won't let him walk away from that." She took his hand, placed it on her belly. Their son kicked against his palm. "Make sure whatever you do," she whispered, "is justice, not revenge." He nodded, but in his heart, he wasn't sure there was a difference anymore. If you've ever wanted to see a corrupt billionaire face real consequences, don't click away, because what happens next is biblical. The first blow came at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. Korea Development Bank froze all of Titan Heavy Industries' credit lines. 230 billion Korean wons in accessible capital gone. Do-hun's CFO called in a panic. "Sir, we can't make payroll. We can't pay suppliers. We have 3 active construction projects that will halt by Friday if we don't. Find the money." "There is no money. Our accounts are frozen pending investigation." "Investigation for what?" "Everything. Taxes, labor, environmental violations. They're auditing 10 years of records." Do-hun's chest tightened. "Who authorized this?" "The presidential office." The phone slipped from his hand. The second blow came 2 hours later. The Ministry of Employment and Labor announced a formal investigation into Titan Heavy Industries for unpaid overtime wages, unsafe working conditions resulting in 3 worker deaths, falsified safety inspections, threats against employees who reported violations. Former employees flooded social media with stories. "I lost 2 fingers on a Titan site. They paid me 500,000 Korean wons to stay quiet." Meng Do-hun personally fired me for reporting safety violations. They made us work 80-hour weeks with no overtime pay. When I complained, they blacklisted me from the industry. The third blow came that evening. Yura posted on Instagram. A single photo. Her, smiling, arm around a European investor in Monaco. Caption: New chapter. New energy. No regrets. She'd already replaced him. Duhan stared at the post for 20 minutes. Then he called her. Blocked. He called from a different number. She answered, annoyed. What? You're really doing this? Doing what? Moving on? Yes, Duhan. I'm doing that. I made you. No, you used me. There's a difference. Her voice was ice. And honestly, I should have left the second I saw how you treated your ex-wife. That video wasn't surprising. It was confirmation. Confirmation of what? That you're exactly the kind of man I don't want to be associated with. She hung up. By Friday, Titan Heavy Industries stock had dropped 64%. Investors were fleeing. Partners were terminating contracts. The board called an emergency meeting. Duhan's father, Chairman Meng, sat at the head of the table, face carved from stone. You've destroyed this company. I didn't do anything wrong. You assaulted a pregnant woman on camera and mocked her dead child. She's my ex-wife. It's personal. It's national news. Chairman Meng slammed the table. Every government contract we have is under review. Every bank has frozen our assets. Every investor is running for the exits. It'll blow over. No, it won't. The chairman stood. The board has voted. You're removed as CEO effective immediately. You can't do that. I just did. Security will escort you out. I'm your son. And because of you, this family's legacy is in ruins. 2 security guards entered. Duhan looked around the table. Men he'd worked with for a decade. Deals he'd closed. Empires he'd helped build. Not one of them met his eyes. He was escorted out of his own building. No advice, no ceremony, just silence. That night, he received an eviction notice from his Cheongdam-dong penthouse. Couldn't pay rent. Accounts frozen. He had 1 week to vacate. He sat on the floor of his empty living room. Yura's things already gone, furniture repossessed, walls echoing, and realized he'd lost everything in 6 days. Have you ever seen karma work this fast? Because it's not done yet. The Blue House press conference was scheduled for 7 p.m. on a Friday. Prime time. Maximum viewership. Every major news outlet was there. KBS, NBC, SBS, JTBC, YTN. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters filled every seat. The nation held its breath. At 6:58 p.m., President Cha entered the briefing room. And beside him, wearing an emerald maternity gown that caught the light like water, hair styled simply, face serene, was Han Sol. The room erupted. Kamera shativs. Shouted questions. Gasps. President Cha raised his hand. Silence fell. He didn't smile. Didn't soften. He spoke like a man delivering a verdict. Good evening. Tonight, I speak not only as your president, but as a father. He gestured to Han Sol. This is my daughter, Han Sol Cha. Wife to my son, Cha Eun-woo. Mother to my future grandson. The room exploded again. Reporters were on their feet. She's the first daughter-in-law. The woman in the video is the president's family? Meng Du-hun assaulted the president's daughter? President Cha waited for silence, then continued. 6 days ago, she was humiliated in a public parking lot by a man who believed wealth made him untouchable. His voice dropped, cold and lethal. He was wrong. The cameras focused on Han Sol. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. She just stood there, graceful, dignified, 5 months pregnant with the nation's future, and let the world see her. Let me be clear, President Cha said. This administration will not tolerate violence, harassment, or intimidation against any citizen, especially not against pregnant women, especially not against my family. He paused. Anyone who believes power protects them from accountability will learn otherwise. The message was unmistakable. Reporters scribbled frantically. My daughter has shown extraordinary courage. She survived abuse. She rebuilt her life. She carried the grief of losing a child and still found the strength to love again. His voice cracked slightly. She is the embodiment of resilience, and I am honored to call her my daughter. Han Sol's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. This nation will protect her. This government will defend her. And anyone who seeks to harm her will face the full weight of justice. He looked directly into the camera. That includes Meng Du-hun and any individual or corporation complicit in his actions. The conference ended. Han Sol was escorted out by Secret Service. The internet detonated. Hashtag President's Daughter. Hashtag First Grandson. Hashtag Han Sol Cha. Hashtag Meng Du-hun is finished. Within an hour, Titan Heavy Industries issued a statement officially severing ties with Meng Du-hun. Within 2 hours, the Meng family released a public apology and disowned him to protect the family's remaining assets. Within 4 hours, the prosecutor's office announced criminal charges: assault, harassment, defamation, and unlawful intimidation. Du-hun watched the broadcast from a Gashwan in Syndrome, a tiny room with a single bed, communal bathroom, and a window that looked at a brick wall. 250,000 Korean wons a month. All he could afford. He stared at the screen as President Cha spoke, as Han Sol stood there glowing and protected and loved. And he realized she hadn't just survived him. She'd ascended. While he sat in a room smaller than his old closet, buried in debt, facing criminal charges, abandoned by his family, she stood in the blue house, pregnant with a miracle, married to the president's son, beloved by an entire nation. He'd called her broken, but he was the one shattered beyond repair. If you've ever seen someone reap exactly what they sowed, you know this feeling. Because justice doesn't always come fast, but when it does, it's complete. 3 months before the parking lot incident, Han Sol couldn't sleep. She lay in the blue house bedroom, staring at the ceiling while Eun-woo breathed softly beside her. Her mind kept circling back to her marriage. Not the abuse, not the loss, the details. Strange, specific details that never made sense until now. At 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and went to Eun-woo's study. He found her there an hour later, surrounded by notebooks, writing frantically. "What are you doing?" She looked up, eyes red. "I need to tell you something. About Du-hun." He sat down. "Okay. When we were married, he used to take calls late at night, always in his office with the door locked. But our bedroom shared a wall, and the soundproofing was terrible. What did you hear? Names, amounts, locations." She flipped through her notes. "I didn't think anything of it at the time. I thought it was just business. But looking back," she handed him the notebook. He had offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. "I heard him on the phone once, confirming transfers. Korean won 8.7 billion, 12 billion Korean wons, amounts like that." Eun-woo's expression shifted. "He bribed city officials for building permits," she continued. "I remember one conversation clearly. He said, 'The inspection is scheduled for Tuesday. Make sure Park is the one who comes. He's already been paid.' Park, a building inspector in Gangnam District. Du-hun falsified safety certificates for 3 luxury towers. I found documents once. He left them on the kitchen counter. Structural assessments that were never actually conducted." Eun-woo leaned forward. "Why didn't you report this?" Because I was terrified. Because I thought no one would believe me. Because I was fighting just to survive each day. Her voice cracked, but I remember everything. She pulled out more pages. He made illegal political donations through shell companies. He had workers sign contracts in Korean, but explain terms in English they didn't understand. He cut corners on construction materials, used substandard concrete, cheaper steel. Han-so. Eun-woo's mind was racing. There's more. He threatened whistleblowers, paid off journalists. I once overheard him tell someone, if he talks, make sure he never works in this city again. She looked at him, tears streaming. I'm not making this up. I know how it sounds, like I'm trying to get revenge. But these are things I heard, things I saw, things that kept me awake at night, wondering if I was complicit just by knowing. Eun-woo took her hands. You're not complicit. You were a victim trying to survive. But now I'm safe. Now I have power. She squeezed his hands. And if even half of what I remember is true, Do-hun has been breaking the law for years. Eun-woo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I need to make a phone call. The next day, President Cha initiated a covert investigation into Titan Heavy Industries. Not public, not announced, just quiet, methodical digging by the Financial Services Commission, the National Tax Service, and the Fair Trade Commission. They used Han-sol's information as a roadmap. Every detail she remembered, every name, every location, every suspicious conversation, they verified. And she was right about almost everything. The offshore accounts existed. The falsified safety certificates were real. The bribery, the threats, the illegal donations, all documented, hidden, waiting to be uncovered. By the time Do-hun splashed mud on Han-sol in that parking lot, the investigation was already 3 months deep. They had enough evidence to dismantle his empire. They were just waiting for the right moment to strike. The parking lot incident gave them that moment. It handed them public justification on a silver platter. The nation was outraged. The media was demanding justice. And the Blue House had everything they needed to deliver it. Do-hun thought he'd humiliated a powerless woman. He had no idea that powerless woman had given the government a blueprint to destroy him months earlier. His downfall didn't start with the mud. It started the night Han-sol couldn't sleep and decided the truth mattered more than her fear. Have you ever realized that the person you underestimated was actually the one holding all the cards? That's what happened here. Do-hun destroyed himself the moment he underestimated his ex-wife, because she remembered everything, and she told the one person who had the power to do something about it. The mud splash incident wasn't the beginning. It was just the final nail in a coffin Han-sol had been building, unknowingly, for months. If you've ever wanted to see karma work with surgical precision, this is it. Because what comes next is pure poetic justice. The criminal charges came first. Assault, harassment, defamation, intimidation of a pregnant woman. Do-hun's lawyer told him they were minor charges. We can plea this down. Community service. Fine. You'll be fine. Then the financial crimes charges dropped. Tax evasion, money laundering, bribery, falsification of government documents. 15 counts, each carrying 3 to 10 years in prison. The lawyer went pale. Where did they get this information? Do-hun knew. He stared at the list of charges and saw Han-sol in every line. The offshore accounts she must have overheard him discussing. The falsified permits she must have seen on his desk. The bribery she must have pieced together from late-night phone calls. She'd been a witness to his crimes for years, and she'd finally spoken. Can we fight this? Do-hun asked. The lawyer shook his head. They have documentation, bank records, recorded conversations, testimony from former employees. He closed his briefcase. You're going to prison, Mr. Meng. The only question is for how long. The Meng family held an emergency meeting. Du-hun wasn't invited. His father, Chairman Meng, issued a public statement. The Meng family condemns the actions of Meng Du-hun. He no longer represents our values or a legacy. Effective immediately, he is removed from all family assets and businesses. We apologize to the nation and especially to Han Sol-cha for the pain he has caused. They cut him off completely. No money, no lawyers, no support. His mother didn't even call. Former employees continued coming forward. He threatened to kill my career if I reported the safety violations. We worked 90-hour weeks. No overtime, no breaks. When workers got injured, Titan paid them off to stay quiet. 3 men died on Titan sites in 5 years. Every death was covered up. The stories piled up, each one more damning than the last. Du-hun's phone stopped ringing, not because he was busy, because no one wanted to talk to him anymore. Friends disappeared. Business contacts blocked him. Even his barber canceled his standing appointment. He was a pariah. One afternoon, walking to the courthouse for a preliminary hearing, someone recognized him. A woman in her 60s. You're Meng Du-hun. He kept walking. My son worked for Titan. He died when scaffolding collapsed. You paid us 10 million Korean wons to stay quiet. Du-hun's stomach turned. I'm sorry for your loss. You're not sorry. Her voice was steady. Cold. You're just sorry you got caught. She walked away. He stood there on the sidewalk, briefcase in hand, realizing she was right. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he'd lost. That night, alone in his Gashawon room, he opened his laptop and searched Han Sol's name. The photos from the Blue House press conference appeared. Her in the emerald gown, smiling, glowing, protected. He stared at the image for an hour. She looked happy, actually genuinely happy. The kind of happy he'd never allowed her to feel when she was his. And now she was untouchable. While he sat in a room that smelled like mildew and regret, facing a decade in prison, abandoned by everyone. He'd called her worthless, but she was standing in a palace, and he was barely standing at all. Comment below, is this justice or revenge? Because the trial is about to answer that question definitively. The Seoul Central District Court was packed. Media, protesters, victims' families. Du-hun entered in handcuffs, escorted by 2 officers. The courtroom erupted in boos. The judge slammed his gavel. Order. Du-hun sat at the defendant's table, alone. His court-appointed lawyer was young, inexperienced, clearly overwhelmed. The prosecution had 12 lawyers, and a witness list that made Du-hun's chest tighten. Former employees, government officials, financial experts, and Han Sol. She entered the courtroom quietly, wearing a simple navy dress, 6 months pregnant now, moving carefully. Eun-woo walked beside her, hand on her back. She didn't look at Du-hun. Not once. The prosecutor called her to the stand. She was sworn in. Mrs. Cha, can you describe your relationship with the defendant? I was married to him for 2 years. And during that marriage, did you witness any illegal activity? Du-hun's lawyer objected. Relevance. Your Honor, Mrs. Cha's testimony is directly relevant to 15 counts of financial fraud and corruption. Overruled. Answer the question, Mrs. Cha. Ansaltu kabrat. Yes. I witnessed conversations about offshore accounts, bribery of city officials, and falsification of safety certificates. Can you be specific? She pulled out a notebook, the same one she'd shown Eun-woo months ago. On March 14th, 2022, I overheard a phone conversation where my then-husband discussed transferring 8.7 billion Korean wons to an account in the Cayman Islands. He said, and I quote, Make sure it's untraceable. The courtroom murmured. On June 3rd, 2022, I found documents on our kitchen counter, building safety certificates for the Prugio Tower in Gangnam. The certificates were signed by an inspector named Park, but the inspection date was listed as 2 weeks in the future. Duhan's lawyer leaned over. She's lying. She has documentation. Duhan whispered back. Ow! I don't know. Ansol continua. On August 10th, 2022, I overheard him threaten a former employee. He said, "If you talk to the media, I'll make sure you never work in this industry again." She spoke for 40 minutes. Calm, clear, devastating. Every memory, every conversation, every crime she'd unknowingly witnessed. When she finished, the prosecutor asked one final question. "Mrs. Cha, why didn't you come forward sooner?" Her voice cracked. Because I was terrified. Because I was fighting just to survive each day. Because I thought no one would believe me. She looked at Duhan for the first time. But I'm not terrified anymore. The defense had no questions. What could they ask? 3 weeks later, the verdict came. Guilty on all counts. The judge read the sentence without emotion. Meng Duhan, you are hereby sentenced to 12 years in prison for financial fraud, bribery, tax evasion, and corruption. Additionally, you are fined 150 billion Korean wons and permanently banned from holding any corporate position in South Korea. Duhan's legs gave out. The officers caught him. He turned, looking for someone, anyone, who cared. The courtroom was empty of allies. Just victims, prosecutors, journalists, and Han Sol, walking out with her husband, hand on her belly, never looking back. If you've ever seen someone face the consequences of their own cruelty, you understand this moment. Because justice isn't always fast, but when it arrives, it's absolute. The contractions started at 4 a.m. Han Sol woke Eun-woo, trying to stay calm, but her hands were shaking. It's too early. You're 38 weeks. That's full term. But what if? He took her face in his hands. Our son is strong, just like you. The drive to Seoul National University Hospital took 8 minutes. Secret Service cleared traffic. The entire maternity ward had been prepared. Dr. Kong met them at the entrance. How are you feeling? Tarifia, Han Sol admita. That's normal. Let's meet your baby. President Cha arrived within the hour, still in his pajamas, having left the cabinet meeting the moment he got the call. Jia arrived next, crying before she even reached the waiting room. By 9 a.m., the entire Blue House staff was on standby. The nation was watching. Labor lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of pain, fear, hope, and prayers whispered in between contractions. Eun-woo never left her side. He held her hand so tightly she thought bones might break, but she didn't care. She needed the anchor. At 10:47 a.m., Dr. Kong said the words Han Sol thought she'd never hear. One more push. I can see his head. She pushed with everything she had left. And then, a cry. Loud. Furious. Alive. Ansol Kuyapsha Bak Subing. He's here, Dr. Kong said, smiling. He's perfect. They place him on her chest. Warm, wriggling, screaming his lungs out. Cho Min-yoon. 8 pounds, 2 ounces. Black hair. Eun-woo's nose. Her eyes. Perfect. She touched his tiny hand, and he gripped her finger. Hi, baby, she whispered. I'm your mom. I've been waiting for you. Eun-woo was crying. Not quiet tears. Full, chest-heaving sobs. He kissed her forehead, then Min-jun's. You did it. We did it. President Cha entered the room, tears streaming down his face. He looked at his grandson and laughed. A sound Han Sol had never heard from him before. Pure, un filter de joy. He's beautiful. Do you want to hold him a BOG? He nodded, unable to speak. She placed Min Jun in his arms. The president of South Korea stood there, holding his first grandson, and whispered, "You're going to change the world, little one." The hospital released a statement at noon. The first grandson, Cha Min Jun, was born healthy at 10:47 a.m. Mother and baby are doing well. The nation celebrated. Fireworks in Seoul. Temple bells ringing. Strangers hugging on the streets. That night, after visitors left and Min Jun was asleep in her arms, Han Sol looked down at him and thought about Hanul. "Your sister sent you," she whispered. "I know she did." She imagined Hanul somewhere beyond, watching, smiling. Proud of the brother she never got to meet. Eun-woo sat beside her. "What are you thinking? That I survived hell to get here. You did more than survive. You rebuilt your life from ashes." She looked at him, tears blurring her vision. "Do you think she'd be proud of me?" "Hanul." She nodded. "I think she's the reason you're here. The reason Min Jun exists. The reason you found the strength to walk away and start over." He kissed her temple. "She's proud of you. I know she is." Min Jun stirred, making soft baby sounds. "Ansol ruka im gently." And for the first time since losing Hanul, she felt whole. Not healed. Grief doesn't work that way. But whole. Because she'd carried 2 children. One she lost. One she got to keep. And both of them had changed her in ways she'd never be able to explain. Have you ever felt like everything you endured was preparing you for one perfect moment? This was hers, and she was finally ready to live it. One more chapter remains, the peace she earned and the legacy she built. Don't stop now. 1 year later, Blue House Garden, cherry blossoms in full bloom. Han Sol stood beneath the trees, Min Jun on her hip, watching him reach for falling petals. He was 1 year old now, walking, babbling, laughing at everything. He had Eun-woo's smile and her stubborn streak. Perfect. A journalist approached, pre-approved, vetted by security. "Mrs. Cha, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Do you feel vindicated?" "About what happened to your ex-husband?" Han Sol considered the question. Do-hun was 2 years into his sentence. No parole. No early release. Titan Heavy Industries no longer existed. The Meng family had disappeared from public life. Yura was in Europe, married to someone else, pretending she'd never known him. "I don't think about him anymore," Han Sol said simply. "I'm too busy living." The journalist smiled. "One more question. Your husband is proposing new legislation. Can you tell us about it?" "An Sol's expresión suftanat." It's called Hanul's Law, named after her first daughter. The baby who never breathed but changed everything. The law would protect pregnant women from workplace discrimination, domestic abuse, and public harassment. It would mandate paid maternity leave, criminalize threats against expectant mothers, and create resources for women escaping abusive relationships. "My daughter didn't survive," Han Sol said quietly. "But her name will protect thousands of women who deserve better." The journalist's eyes welled up. "That's beautiful." Min Jun squirmed, reaching for the ground. Han Sol set him down, watching him toddle toward the cherry blossom tree she'd planted last spring. Hanul's tree. Small, delicate, growing stronger every day. Eun-woo appeared, scooping Min Jun up before he face-planted into the grass. "Careful, buddy." Min Yun giggled. President Cha joined them, hands in his pockets, watching his grandson with obvious adoration. "He looks like you," he told Han Sol. "He looks like hope," she replied. That evening, after Min Jun was asleep and the blue house was quiet, Han Sol stood at the window overlooking Seoul. The city glowed, alive, relentless, full of people fighting their own battles. She thought about the woman she used to be, the one who believed love meant suffering, the one who thought she deserved cruelty. the one who almost didn't survive. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who knew her worth, someone who'd walked through fire and came out holding a miracle. Unwoo wrapped his arms around her from behind. What are you thinking? That I'm grateful. For what? For everything. The pain, the loss, the second chance. She turned to face him. For you. He kissed her forehead. I'm the grateful one. They stood there in the quiet, two people who'd found each other at exactly the right moment and built something beautiful from the ruins of the past. As it says in Galatians 6 verse 7, a man reaps what he sows. Duhan sowed cruelty, humiliation, and destruction. He reaped loneliness, prison, and obscurity. Han Sol sowed humility, resilience, and courage. She reaped love, family, and a kingdom. And in the end, that's the only justice that matters. The kind where you survive, rebuild, and live so well that revenge becomes irrelevant. Because the best response to those who try to break you, it is to thrive,